아가씨,
아저씨 이게 뭐야? Hello everybody, Akashi here. So today I'm going to be doing another K-drama review. This drama is called Angel's Last Mission Love. It recently came out and I watched the first 4 episodes of it and I'm so excited to share with you guys about it. I've been waiting on it. When I heard about it, I was so excited. I saw Shin Hae-sun in 30 but still 17, and I loved her acting in there. It's actually my very first time seeing her acting, so I was very looking forward to this one. And and at the same time, it's L from Infinite. I've seen L in a lot of other dramas, and he doesn't really get to play the main guy, and he's always side character, supporting character. I'm sure, I don't know if he's the main guy in here, or from what the synopsis look like, it's okay as long as he gets to interact a little bit more with the main girl. It's good enough for me. So let's go ahead and jump into characters and synopsis, and I will review the first 4 episodes with you guys and give you guys my thoughts on what I think of the first 4 episodes. So we start out with Shin Hae-sun as Lee Yoon-sol. She is a ballerina who never believed in love again after her accident. And then we get L. His real name is Kim Myung-soo. He plays Dan, or Kim Dan. He's an angel who returned to heaven only if his mission is successful. So he has one last mission before he can go up to heaven. And then we have Lee Dong-gung. He's actually back. It's been a very long time since I've seen him act. And well, he's back and he's playing Ji Kang-woo, and he is Young-so's mentor and also a ballet instructor. And then we have Kim Bo-mi as Kun Nina. She is Young-so's cousin, and she's also a ballerina dancer, pursuing to be the same as Young-so or a little bit better. And then we have Do Ji-won as Choi Yongja. She is Nina's mother, and she's the director of fantastic ballet and a very, very greedy woman. She's also the aunt of Lee Young-sun. And then there's Kim In-kwang as Ho. He is I don't know the word for it, but he gives out missions to Angel, like he just gives out missions to angels, and he is Kim Dan's Sunday. And then there's Woo Hee-jin as Jung Yu-min, and she is the head of all housekeepers in Young-so's house. And then we have Jang Hyung-sang as Jo Sung-hwang. He is the driver / secretary for Young-so's family since she was little. And last we have, I think it's Kyung-nae as Kim Luna. She is the older sister of Nina and associate director of fantastic ballet, and she is also a cousin to Young-so. So the synopsis for this drama is very short. It is an angel named Tan is given, I keep saying Tan, but I'm just gonna call him Dan just to save myself from ruining my accent on this. But an angel called Dan is given the mission to find love for Lee Young-so, but he ends up falling in love with her. So, you kind of get the idea of what the story is about. So let's go ahead and jump into, let's jump into the review. I think this drama is a total of 32 episodes. It is those back-to-back episodes, so we do get them 2 episodes back-to-back on Wednesdays and Thursdays. So now for the recap of the first 4 episodes. Apologize in advance if I do blabber a little bit longer and the video becomes long, but it's just the first 4 episodes has a lot, so you really gotta pay attention to the first 4 because it will really guide you to understand the drama a little bit more. So the first episode starts us off with Lee Young-sung having a dream of her doing a ballet dance on stage. I think it's like the White Swan or something like that. It's the swan dance that you see all ballerina do, or at those ballet dance show that you see. Oh my gosh, I'm having a hard time with words today. And then as she's dancing, the stage light crashes, it breaks, and it falls, and a shattered glass falls right into her eye, and she wakes up instantly, and she stays like, ugh, why is my dreams always full of colors? And then she just gets up and go get ready, and then she trips over a stepping stool, and she ends up calling all the housemaids into her room and having them blindfold and trying to walk and avoid the stepping stool. And no one, she's trying to get them to admit who didn't put it away, and no one admit to removing it from her closet. And then eventually one maid admits it, and she fires that maid, telling that maid that she knew it was her because of the lavender scent that she was able to smell, but she was just waiting for her to admit it. But yeah, so we get to see Lee Young-sung's kind of, spoiled brat behavior right away. And then we also get introduced immediately to Miss Jung and Miss Jo. Mr. Jo, who works for Young-sung, they are the only one who can deal with her temper. And then, as they try to hide it from her, the Fantastic Culture Foundation 20th anniversary party, the invitation arrived, and she was able to get a look at it, and it was in Braille. So we get an idea that she's blind. And then she reads it, she gets really upset, and she takes off. And as she leaves, she grabs her service guard dog. I think his name is Ikurum, something like that. And then as she leaves, Mr. Jo gets a phone call from the hospital about her surgery. She grabs the phone from Mr. Jo and says, "Doctor, what is it this time? Is it an infection? Did not match?" And then, the doctor gives her excuses, and she gets angry, and she goes, "Just cancel my surgery, and I'm requesting to be taken off the wait list to get a new, I don't know the word for it, but caption." So she gives the phone back to Mr. Jo, and she takes off running. And then we overhear, as she's doing her running, we overhear Mr. Jo's voice about Young-sung, that she was blind for 3 years now, and she forbids anyone to talk about ballet to her and the company Fantastic. So that's a little backstory about her. And then we get introduced to Dan immediately. He's standing on top of a building, and he says goodbye to this beautiful world, and he jumps off, and you're kind of like, but his wings spreads wide open, and he's flying, and he appears in a truck full of dogs trapped in cages, and he's sitting next to the driver. And we find out the driver cannot see him. Dan is the angel, and the driver is trying to light his cigarette, but Dan is doing all these stuff to stop the cigarette from working, complaining that this guy is not a good guy. He steals dog and sells them and all this stuff like that. And eventually Dan is able to let the dog go, and we see one of the dogs suffering, and he's going to die, and Dan puts his hand over it and says rest in peace, and then some light glowing on the dog, and the dog is sent to heaven. And so he snaps as he goes, he snaps that he's finally, oh shoot, I'm done now, I have to go to my final missions. And he ended up at a bench in a park, and as he waits for his final missions to be sent to him, he hears noises, and he sees Young-sung getting attacked by 2 skateboarders, and then they start calling her blind and start playing with her. As these 2 skateboarder bother Yoon-sung, she ends up beating them up and telling them that she's not blind, she's just visually impaired, and blind is different from it. And then after beating up these guys, she ends up walking and crying and thinking back to, when she was dancing before she went blind, and it's just very suffering for her. And then she ends up at the bench, and then Dan is sitting next to her, and she told him to leave, and he's like, what? She could feel that I sat here, and she's all yeah, did I give you permission to sit there? And like she started yelling at him, and he just didn't respond to her. And then like she can't see, she's all like, I can't see, but I can still hear, and I can still sense, and I can still touch, and everything. My other senses are still working, so leave. And he's just like, oh my god, like. And then so like she hit him, and he spoke a word, and like she heard him. And then it shows us that like she's sitting there by herself, there's no one there who she's talking to, but she's actually talking to him. And they get into this whole debate of the deity or something like that. And then like he fully believes in it, she doesn't believe in it. And like he's all like she's all like, because he cannot grant me my wishes when I just ask for certain things, like, and like, you know, all these stuff. So, and he couldn't grant my wishes, taking my parents away, taking my vision away, taking my dreams away. And like Dan mentions that not everybody behaves like you after they go experience a tragedy like that. And like he got her upset by mentioning that to her, and like she grabs him, and it shocks him even more that like she can touch him. And like, you know, they fight, and then he got away, and then Mrs. Jung came and found Yoon So, and then like she's all like, Ajima, like catch him. And Mrs. Jung's like, I can't see anyone, like, Agaji, are you seeing ghosts, you know? And like, you know, Dan disappears, and he leaves a handkerchief behind, and the handkerchief has a feather sewn on it. And then we fast forward to a scene where Mr. Jo goes and meet Young-soo's aunt, Choi Young-ja, and we find out that she is holding the fantastic anniversary party on the day of Young-soo's parents' death anniversary, which is why it upsets Young-soo and Mr. Jo about it. And Mr. Jo also tells him that, I know you are behind the cancellation of Young-soo's surgery, and you've been getting involved in it. And he's like, I'm going to push forward and demand investigation for her to stop messing with Young-soo. And the aunt's like, you know, she's like, I didn't do any of this, but we find out she is behind it. She has money, so she has money to persuade the doctor to, you know, lie all the time about her surgery. Therefore, Yoso was never able to get surgery, but pretty much the aunt has to stop now because Mr. Jo is onto her case. And then we get introduced to Kunina. She hits a cat while driving, and like right in front of Dan, and he saw her hit the cat. And then we also get introduced to Kundaluna. It's the two sisters are in the car. Nani hits over a cat while driving. The sisters swap seats, and Luna tells I keep calling her Nani, her name is Nina. Luna tells Nina that, like, you know, don't cry about it. Nina feels bad about it, but Luna's like, when a tragedy happens to something or someone, it's gonna come back and take everything back for itself. But you have the chance to get rid of it before it comes back and attack you. Hint, hint, Young-soo. And then we move on to Dan meeting his sunbae Who, and his sunbae yells at him for doing bad things, and Dan insists on, you know, that he's keeping his word, he's not touching a human. And we find out that Dan is just he's he was a dispatched angel who's in charge of animals on Earth only. So he's not allowed to touch human, because if he touches a human, he's going to vanish into smoke and dust. And so, you know, he has 24 hours before he finishes everything and finally goes up to heaven. And so his sunbae tells him that be very careful for the next 24 hours. You never know what's gonna happen to you. And Dan's like, don't worry, I'll be fine. And he realized his handkerchief is missing, and he realized that it's Young-soo who has it, and he has to go back and get it. Dan ends up at Young-soo's place and, you know, trying to get his handkerchief. He overhears a conversation of Young-soo and Mr. Jo of, you know, she's full of anger, and she's becoming very stubborn, and all these type of behavior she is because she can't see and she's suffering from it. And she knows her other family is stopping her way from getting surgery so she can ever see again. So but Mr. Joe tells her to shine brightly, pacha pacha. And then Dan, being able to get his handkerchief from her, he ends up following her to the party, the fantastic party. And he sees how she behaves and how she treats everybody over there and how they treat her back and everything. And she's also really hurt by hearing people gossip about her, that she shouldn't be back because she's blind, she's gonna ruin things, she brings bad luck. And I loved it that when she went to make the speech, because the company Fantastic Ballet belongs to Youngso. Just because she's blind, it doesn't mean that she doesn't have it. I think she's still the full shareholder of it and everything. And so she goes and make her speech telling the people, be like, support as much as you can, as much as you pity me. And she reveals about Nina, how Nina was her understudy and Nina was only supposed to take over if she was ever to fall in love and everything like that, but because she went blind, Nina took over. And oh my gosh, she said so many things, and her speech was a good slap to everybody's face, especially to her aunt and them, and she leaves. And Dan was able to get his handkerchief back. And on the way home, Mr. Joe and Yoso gets into a car accident. Their brake line got cut off at the party, and they're hanging on the bridge, and Dan ends up there and he sees them, but he can't touch humans, so he says his words of rest in peace, and when he says that, Yeonso hears him and she calls out for help, and he's trying to ignore her, but she continues to call out for help, and she's even if you don't want to help us, at least call 911, and it's bothering him that he can hear her so clearly, and just when the car falls off the cliff, Dan makes the decision, that he stops it and he saves her when his time was ticking for him to head back to the church because he has to go to heaven. And so, he made the decision to help her. And we get a little scene during the time of Yoso calling for help from Dan. He got this flurry memory taking over him when he overheard her voice, and it's a little girl in the rain and a little boy falling into the water. So it gives us a little something. It might be them when they were young or something like that, who knows. It's a memory of Dan that he has. After saving Yeonso and Mr. Jo, Dan leaves. He rushes to the church, and Chang Kang-woo ends up at the scene helping them. And we find out that Dan didn't make it to the church, and he missed his time, and he interviewed with humans when he was not supposed to. So he kind of panicked, but his sunbae told him that he's given one chance because he did a good thing by saving a human when he was not supposed to touch human, but he wasn't greedy, and he ended up saving a human when he's not supposed to, So he's granted 100 days to be human to finish his last mission. And his last mission is he's going to become human with the name Kim Dan, and he has to help Lee Young-seo find love within 100 days. And he refuses because he hates him and her behavior. And then 2 days later, we get Yeon-seo wakes up from the hospital. She finds out she can see again, and Mr. Jo is dead. Mr. Jo died, and when he died, he wrote down that he will be the donor for Yeon-seo, and that's how she was able to see again. But she doesn't show it to people, but she's really hurt that Mr. Jo is dead, and he was all everything to her. Basically, he was a second parent to her, and it shows us the backstory of how she was young and he was the new driver to her family. She got attached to him, and she called him Ajashi, and he loved her like a daughter, and it became a cardiac arrest panic disorder for her, where her body goes into shock and she can't live peacefully because she loved him so much, and having him pass away and giving his eye to her, she was having kind of like hesitating to move on. So she's like, she can't move around in her own house, and she's like, but this is my house, like I did everything with him, and why is this happening to me? So she's going through a very tough time, and her Mrs. Jung tells her that like it doesn't matter, you have to pull through, because Mr. Joe was a very, very nice man. He did so good for everyone. You have to pull through and continue living because he gave you a second chance. And then we get more introductions into Ji Kang-wook's character. He finally becomes the new artistic director of Fantastic Ballet. He takes over and changes everything, the show and everything. And he also removes Nina from dancing for the show and everything. And he's going to bring Yeoseo back. While like the rest disagree with him, but he's like, I don't care. The show cannot go on without her. She's a better version, And so we get see a little bit about him and Nina, but he's pretty much telling Nina, like, don't be stupid, Like, Nina is really stupid and naive, And so we get a little bit introduction about the two of them. And then we move on to Yeoseo finding a new driver. And Mrs. Jung tells her that the doctor said it's best if you find a new driver, new secretary to be with you to help you through this process. And everyone else fails the interview, and Kim Dang goes through the interview, and he does similar things to like what Mr. Joe did, like shine brightly, jump up, and it got Yeoseo to like think about Mr. Joe, but she ends up rejecting him, and he forgets that now he's human now, and he spoke out loud. And because when he was an angel, he always speaks out loud and nobody hears him. He speaks out loud, she hears him, and he's just like okay, whatever, you heard me, and he yells at Yeoseo. She gets upset and she chases after them, and Mrs. Jung's like, Akashi, you can walk, because she hasn't been able to walk. She's kind of like slow walking and all stuff like that. She's using her cane and all stuff like that. So they're like, he's Miss Kendan, you're higher, you helped our Agashi walked, you can help her improve. And so he finally gets higher, and he finally gets to see why Yeoseo is really like, and why everybody don't like her. And he's like, oh my god, how am I supposed to get this woman to fall in love? Like, she's so arrogant, she's so stubborn, every little thing bothers her, and like, but he doesn't stop, and like he goes against her, and he tells her she has to be nicer to people, she has to stop being like that, and they get into arguments and stuff like that, but he doesn't really care. He still helps her because he pretty much reminds her of Mr. Joe, so it kind of helps her to improve a little bit on her state right now, that the state she's in. And then like, just when Kim Jae thought that he was human, his angel wing popped back out, and he's like, he doesn't understand why, and he's trying to like hide it, and Yeoseo is calling for him, and he's like, oh my gosh, like panicking, and he hides in his room, and Yeoseo comes out of her room looking for him, and she hears a crash, and she goes into the living room, and she sees scattered glass, which is a traumatized for her, because that's what got her to go blind in the first place. And like she gets scared, and her body goes into more cardiac arrest, and she can't move, and the chandelier breaks and falls on her, and like Dan comes to the rescue, and he spreads his angel wings in front of her and blocks all the scattered glass, and like the episode ends, and you're like, did he just reveal to her that he's an angel? And you're like, but that's not it. When that happens, we get another memory showing that like a little boy is about to fall off a cliff, and the little girl with the umbrella, she throws her umbrella and she saves him from falling. And you're like, what's going on? What's going on? And like, that's it for the first 4 episodes. So it's like, oh my god, like did they tie back into each other when they were young? Like, what's going on between the two of them? So there is a lot of questions that needs to be answered. And like, oh my god, like, Yoso, like, you just saw him be an angel, and it's like, I thought he was supposed to be human. He's not an angel anymore. Why did his wing popped out, and all this stuff like that? There's just so much question, and it makes you go, well, did Dan pass away when he was young and he ended up being an angel? Is that what it is? Who knows what's going on? There's a lot of questions and we need answers, and the next episodes are coming up and we'll find out about it. But yeah, overall, those are the first 4 episodes of it. I was like enjoying it so much. I know I blabber so much about it, and there's just so much detail I have to tell you guys, but I enjoyed it. I was just like, oh my god, I loved it. I want to like push Ajashi to watch this too, since we have My Fellow Citizen coming to an end. So that review will come up, and once we finish it. But yeah, like, I want to like push Ajashi to watch this because it seems very interesting, and like the synopsis said, the angel actually ends up falling in love with her, and it makes me go, is he going to get her to fall in love within 100 days? Is he gonna end up leaving her, or is a real him existing somewhere? So who knows. But yes, that is it for the review of Angel's Last Mission, Love, the review of the first 4 episodes. I will continue watching this drama, and when it comes to an end, I will review with you guys on where I left you guys off and how the story turns out and what are my thoughts. I'm very excited for it, and if you have not seen it, do check out the first 4 episodes. If you are hooked onto it, continue on this journey with me, and let's see how it turns out. But until then, I will see you guys in the next drama review.